The other one is contracts.
This is October 8th,
Yeah.
so I can't sign it yet?
Till
Till we
yes,
approve it,
yeah.
gotcha.
Don't test me now.
I was like, what is
I'm
this?
gonna fail.
You won't fail. All right, are we ready to get started?
It's time.
So do I call the meeting to order?
And we'll
Do a
pledge.
pledge, okay. Call this meeting to order. Please join me for a flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to make a motion to approve tonight's agenda and the regular board meetings in the last meeting.
I'll second.
We're gonna jump.
Hold on, we're in a work session.
We're doing the work session first, sorry.
That's why she's here.
Yeah.
That's why Jennifer is here, that's right.
I thought it was 6 o'clock.
You hope.
We wish.
We're an hour
I was like,
ahead. I
I was
thought,
like,
okay,
we
well,
did,
Steve
we
got
did have
directed. I guess we're
there's been
changing
daylight
plans.
savings time. While you were in Mexico, there's this daylight savings time.
Yeah, it's still 8 o'clock at night to me.
No, we have Jennifer Nelson from OSBA here this evening to talk to the board about superintendent evaluation. Everybody has a packet in front of them. And Jennifer, would you like us to introduce ourselves before you introduce yourself? Is that how you?
Actually, that's part of my presentation. I will ask for that in a few minutes, whenever you're ready.
Okay, well, we can start.
We're ready.
Jennifer, my name is Wayne Gallagher. I'm the superintendent of the Coquille School District.
But she said it's gonna be part of her
Oh,
presentation.
you have some?
Hold on. Sorry, I'm having a difficulty hearing you all, so,
Uh-oh.
Can you hear me if I talk in this microphone?
I cannot hear you very well.
Okay, I'll go find IT.
Yeah. We were so worried. We can hear you just fine. We were so worried about.
They're on.
All right, well, I will do my best to just try and pick up what I can, okay? And just raise your hand if there's something that you have a question, and if I can't hear you, I'll try to figure that out, okay?
All right, we'll see if
Are you
IT
ready?
can help out.
Are you ready for me to get started?
Yes, yep.
Yes.
Okay.
She can't hear us.
All right.
Okay.
I can hear you somewhat, but I can't hear individuals who's speaking.
Oh, well, it's because it's a big, it's one microphone for the whole group.
Okay, that's probably why.
Yeah, and it's just using the microphone off of the laptop. That's pretty much all we got. I guess maybe I can try to use this other microphone. Let me see if I can try using this other microphone in it. Let's try this.
Okay.
Can you hear us now?
I can hear you. Someone can speak from the table, maybe?
Can you hear me?
I couldn't hear you at all.
Yeah, that microphone doesn't work with this. So it's all
Okay.
you do.
I just didn't know if it made it
Wayne, do you
louder.
want to try to say something?
I can. Jennifer, testing. This is Wayne Gallagher, superintendent.
I can hear you, Wayne.
You
Okay.
think it was a little bit better or with this microphone or the other one?
I think that was better.
Okay.
So to
Only
speak
got
up.
two mics.
Can you
Okay.
move the computer up closer?
I put her closer.
Can we move the microphone up?
Just speak up. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my presentation. Just let me know if that's up there.
Yep.
You can see it. Okay, Wayne, I heard you pretty clearly there, so. All right. Well, thank you and good evening. Thanks for having me. My name is Jen Nelson. I am an OSBA Board Development Specialist. I'm also one of our executive search consultants. Prior to coming to OSBA, I did serve for the last 20 years or so as a board clerk and a municipal reporter for some city councils and school boards in Yukon County. So I do have a lot of experience coordinating executive evaluations, but I also understand the process from both sides, the governance and the administrative side. For tonight, our goal is to build clarity and consistency in that shared understanding about how the superintendent evaluation process can both ensure accountability and support growth. We're going to go ahead and connect some of your current process, also with our coalition of school board, COSA, school superintendents, administrators, and the OSBA model, and then we're going to review some of the statutory requirements and look at annual timelines that align with Superintendent Gallagher's contract. As we go along, we can just stop if we need to ask some questions, but I'm just going to give you a lot of information and then we'll try and talk about that later on. Just to give you an idea for those of you who have not been through the process before. So in order to find out who has been through this process before, I would like you to introduce yourselves. If you could just tell me your name, how long you've been on the board, why you decided to go on the board, and then what you hope to learn tonight. Anyone's willing to start?
Okay, I'll go because I'm sitting on the end. I'm
Okay.
Sharon Nelson. I've been on the board since July 1st, maybe?
Okay.
This year, and I'm on the board. I've recently retired after 47 years of working for the Coquille School District. And so I continue to give myself as my civic duty. And what do I hope to learn tonight?
Yeah.
Everything that you have to offer.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Kayla Pritchett. I have also been on since July 1st of this year. And I have 2 daughters in the district, and I like to stay in the middle of everything. I hope to learn how we can better assist the superintendent.
Great. Thank you.
My name is Heather Chavarria. I'm in my 11th year on the board. Had 2 students already go through this district and one that's just about done. My last one is just about done. And I hope to learn or discover a new way to deliver an evaluation that is a little less cumbersome than the way that we're using now. And that can be provide way more clarity and maybe more, I don't know, a better record for him moving forward.
I'm Steve Britton. I was appointed to the board in 1999, and I just can't go away. So, been here quite a while. So I have a trucking business. I was in law enforcement for over 20 years. So I enjoy what I'm doing here. I guess that's why I stay.
My name
And what are
is...
you hoping to learn tonight? Oh, sorry. What were you hoping to learn tonight, Steve?
A better way to evaluate the way we've done it in the past. It is, I don't think it gives proper instruction for Wayne. I think sometimes we overburden him with goals. So looking to improve that process.
My name is Marcia Frost. I think this is my 3rd year. Why am I on the board? For lots of reasons, but one is to volunteer my time in the community, stay connected in the school. I was a previous educator. And let's see, what do I hope to learn tonight? A lot, because I am the reason that we're all sitting here. For this, I currently have about 25 staff, and I came to the board and I was like, wow, this evaluation is a hot mess, and I would like to see this a little better. So I hope you have a lot of good stuff for us to learn.
Okay.
I'm Melinda Millett. This is my 5th year on the board. I guess similar to Marcia, I'm just volunteering my time. But I hope that we learn a lot tonight because I feel like our current evaluation isn't super effective. And I would like to, I want a process that helps our superintendent, and that I don't want it to feel like, oh, it's just we're judging you, but that we're working together.
Great. Thank you. All right, Wayne, you want to just give a little bit of information for me? I think we met before, but I just want to give information.
Sure, no problem. My name is Wayne Gallagher. I'm the superintendent of the Coquille School District. This is actually my 6th year as a superintendent, my 4th in the Coquille School District. And yeah, I'm excited to hear what you have to offer about superintendent evaluation and how the superintendent and school board can work together.
Great. Is there anyone else there that I can't see who's on the edges?
Our board secretary.
You know me, Jen.
I know. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing a little bit. It's nice to hear names and also just kind of get an idea of where everybody is and how long we've been there and what you're expecting to get from tonight. I'm hoping that I can meet the expectations. I do have a lot of information to impart. I do want to also let you know that I am going to go ahead and provide our PowerPoint from tonight. I like to go through it before I provide it, and then I'll share it with you all, and I'll make sure Julie gets that around to you as well. All right. So I just wanted to say thank you for sharing, and I just wanted to acknowledge that you all kind of touched on something important. Some of you are brand new board members, and you are kind of mid-cycle, what we would consider mid-cycle for superintendent evaluation processes. And on our end, how we look at the cycle is a year-long process, and this is kind of mid-cycle for us. And you're coming on board in July, and you're being asked to consider superintendent's evaluation and contract renewal eventually in March, without having maybe participated in a full evaluation before. That can feel really uncomfortable, and that's completely normal. It's also on the other side challenging for a superintendent who's been working with new board members who maybe haven't shared that same history or context, or even with some of you that have been here for a little while, and you're just feeling like the process just isn't hitting where you want it to right now. So I just want to recognize that, and I want to say that our focus for tonight is to use the evaluation process and kind of talk about it as a tool. It's a tool for accountability and clarity and support, and like I think Marcia mentioned, or no, was it Melinda? You mentioned not for judgments. But by aligning our expectations and strengthening the communication during the process, I think that we can really build some trust, and you can keep your attention on what matters most, and that's the students, as always. So with that shared purpose in mind, I'm going to go ahead and start by looking at how each of the leadership team parts contribute to the process. So some of you may have seen this before. If you attended the South Coast PSE presentation, I have a similar screen and slides. I'm just going to kind of condense my conversations about it, but some of you may not have been there. Yes? Did someone raise a hand? Oh, sorry. So I just want to go over briefly for those who may not have attended that, board governance essentials. So our leadership team, each member of the leadership team plays a distinct role in the governance and the implementation and coordination. So you have the board, which sets that direction and ensures accountability. You have the superintendent, which obviously is they turn that vision that the board has into action through their leadership and management. And the third element, we have our board clerk or secretary, who really ensures that compliance and that consistency in communication and flow. And I really just want to kind of look at those roles and remind ourselves of those roles, especially when we start to think about going into the superintendent evaluation. So when our roles are clear and connected, that entire system functions more smoothly and stays focused on students, especially during evaluation times. When you're looking at that overall district leadership, that's the relationship between the board and the superintendent. You know, the governing body operations is between the board and their board clerk and secretary to make sure you're doing everything that needs to be done and in compliance. Those executive functions of getting things done, those meetings being facilitated, is between that board clerk and superintendent relationship. And then what we're really looking for is that center where all three are doing their roles and working together in collaboration to have a really effective leadership team. So building on that foundation, I'd like to look at how the board's work and all these roles and things that you're doing, how it connects with decisions for student outcomes in the classroom. So I have this causal chain that we often bring in to everyone's attention. We talk about that every board's decision starts with your values, why you serve, and that's one of the reasons why I like you just sharing your introduction, why you joined the board, because your values and the reasons why you're there shapes your actions and expectations, which also guides the superintendent's leadership. Now that leadership shapes how the principals and the teachers work, and ultimately it trickles down into the classroom and how the students learn. And even though you as board members aren't in the classroom every day, your focus and your consistently does directly influence that student success. Excuse me. So one of the most critical aspects of effective governance and superintendent evaluations is understanding where the board's role ends and where the superintendent's begins. Now, the board governs by setting that direction, adopting policy, ensuring accountability, and the superintendent then manages by leading the operations and implementing that board direction, and also advising you with their professional expertise. Now, when the roles are clear, then the district runs smoothly, but when they blur, then the boards kind of risk micromanaging, superintendents kind of just working without clear expectations. We go based on the balanced governance, which is about staying connected and informed without crossing over into that management side for board members. So now after we clarify the governance and management roles for board governance, we want to look at like what that looks like in action. So when we talk about balanced governance, once governance and management roles are clear, the next question is how do you stay balanced? So when we talk about it, is if boards lean too far one way, they're at risk of being seen as rubber stamping or losing accountability or clarity. Now, boards lean too far against the other way, then they risk that micromanaging into daily operations, which can create frustration and confusion. Balanced governance is all about sitting in the middle, and it means that having that informed oversight, which means you're just staying informed, you're asking thoughtful questions, you're setting clear expectations, and then you're trusting the superintendent to lead that work. It's not about oversight, it's about oversight, but without that overreach, and it's also about partnership and not being too passive. So now these 12 standards of board governance were developed by Dr. Thomas Alsbury. They outline the research-based practices that help boards to focus on student achievement and build that trust with leadership and avoid that micromanagement or disengagement. These standards offer a clear framework for effective student governance, and we did cover these more in depth at the recent training, so I'm not going to go too heavily into them, but I did just want to remind you of those. And I do have them available if you want to have further descriptions of what they are and what they look like. I did provide that before. I can do that again. So those 12 standards that we're talking about, those 12 governance standards, if you kind of break them up into 3 categories, this is what it looks like. If you have the vision and strategy, the accountability and data, and you have culture and relationships. Now, these standards aren't just ideals, they're also observable and measurable behaviors. And that's important to think about what the board is doing, because you're going to be evaluating the superintendent. You want to think also about where your strengths and areas of growth are as well. And I think it's important for boards to do that occasionally, especially if they're going to be doing the same for their employee. So for example, when you're looking here at accountability and data, that shows up with regular monitoring and progress. That culture and relationships is reflected in how we communicate and engage with our communities. That vision and strategy also shows up in how well we connect our goals and to the student outcomes. So these principles really align, the principles of balanced governance for boards and good boardsmanship, effective boardsmanship, they really align with that post-OSBA performance evaluation standards for superintendents. I think you all have been fine or you've seen before. We do have a workbook that kind of talks about the different standards and the process that we use. If you haven't seen it, it's available on our member portal, and I think that we can provide that for you as well. But I am going to reference it quite a few times just to kind of give you an idea of the process and how it compares. So the alignment of the board's balanced governance standards and the performance standards that we use in our superintendent evaluation means that the board governance expectations and the superintendent's leadership standards are designed to really reinforce each other. And I just want to kind of point that out, is that the idea that if you're looking at what things you want to be doing as a board, you want to make sure that your superintendent, you're evaluating their performance based on standards that are going to support you in that as well. It's also about inspiration and alignment with what your board goals are. It's how the systems grow stronger. You pair that clear accountability with that consistent support. That's the idea. The evaluation process helps that board to measure and encourage those qualities. So that feedback that you give during a superintendent evaluation is really a tool for growth, and it's not just a report card of how you're doing. When we're looking at why the board should evaluate the superintendent, that evaluation isn't just about a legal requirement, but it is a legal requirement. It's also one of the most important tools that the board has to build trust and align leadership around that student success. When it's done really well, it ensures accountability by measuring that progress towards shared goals. It promotes your growth, identifying strengths and areas for support. And then it also keeps everyone kind of focused on what matters most. It keeps that alignment on which is the outcomes for students. So in short, the evaluation is not just about compliance, it's also about that capacity building. It's how the boards and the superintendents grow strong together. So what do superintendent evaluations do? Well, they are an effective evaluation anyway. It connects your purpose with the process. So on one side, you want to ensure that you have alignment, that you have accountability, that you have trust. And then on the other side, you also want to provide a really structured framework, and that's where our 5-part model comes in the COSA OSBA model. That 5-part process, it really guides that consistent, fair, and measurable feedback, and that's really what we want to focus on, is that measurable feedback. So each of the steps, they build onto the next. You're starting with those agreed upon standards. We have those performance standards, which we include our 8 standards, which are research-based and nationally recognized. We also have a couple optional components, which is the superintendent goals. Sometimes I think that you often tie, what I was seeing from your previous ones, that you kind of tie the board's goals into your evaluation form that you fill out. This is also an optional tool for our process, but we like to use it in conjunction with the performance standards, not just standalone looking at the superintendent goals. But it's also important, and I'll talk about it a little bit further on, is about identifying that superintendent goals are different than district goals, and I'll get to that soon. We also, part of the process is that you have that evidence of performance, and what we really do is we like to tie that evidence of performance to each one of those standards. So we say, okay, this is the standard. These are the kinds of things you're looking for to ensure that that standard is being met before you kind of decide if they're doing well in that area and decide on your grade. The targeted feedback survey is another optional part, and really the targeted feedback survey, we base it on performance standards, and we have really key questions. It's to the broader community, but it's really targeted as far as not just what standards you're looking at and having those questions directly aligned with it, but also you target who you want to hear from. You don't want to just put this link on your website and have everybody contribute to it, because honestly, most people aren't going to really know what the superintendent is doing in each of these areas. You really want to be targeting people who work regularly with the superintendent to provide their feedback, and then that feedback is provided in a way that's anonymous, but it's also kind of put together. So it's just another tool that you can use as part of our process. So I want to just make that clear a little bit further on. I'll talk about it. The goal, and then finally that element of being compliance, is to have that kind of public summary given out in an open session. Now, it's not, you don't get all the details about what happened in the executive session. Those are generally kept quiet unless the superintendent wants to be in open session, but generally they're not. Those kind of discussions about the board and what they're thinking, where they stand in certain areas, that's not what you share with the public, but you do have to have like kind conversation and that it improves your governance and performance. Any questions so far? I've covered a lot. Okay, I'm going to keep going and we'll see if something comes up. So I did cover this before too about those superintendent standards. I've tried to condense them down to one slide, but they are available in full in our workbook that you can take a look at if you haven't already. But the idea is that you kind of have this visionary ethical leadership on one side, and then you have these systems and accountability leadership on the other side. So all 8 of the standards are listed here. You have that vision and strategic direction, you have the ethics and professional norms, inclusive culture, instructional leadership. That's all under your visionary and ethical leadership side. And then the other 4, you have that communication and community engagement, you have your organizational management, financial management, and policy governance and advocacy. Now those are on that systems and accountability leadership side. Now these 8 standards, as I mentioned, they are research-based and nationally accepted. They define what effective or transformational leadership looks like. Each of them connects directly to what the board values, which is vision, trust, impartiality, that learning and communication with management and accountability. When you're using these as a foundation for your evaluation process, they kind of shift that conversation from being just a subjective impression of what the superintendent's doing to sharing evidence of that leadership in these categories. And that's kind of what I want to hone in on there. I think right now you kind of fill out a little form and you talk about, what do you think that how do you think the superintendent's doing in these areas? And it's very subjective, but we don't actually have that, and we don't actually have necessarily evidence to show us what's happening in a measurable way. Now these standards are about defining impact. So I think that, making sure I'm going into the next one here. So with the standards as a foundation, we want to look at how the evaluation process connects the goals and the feedback and the superintendent's contract timeline, which is what we're going to go and look at next. So what I did here is I did a quick side-by-side of your current process as well as the elements that are in with our process. So like right now you have the board, the evaluation that you have is based on your goals, and you have a few questions or goals in that Google form. You have kind of a single event in January and February where it's board feedback only that you come into that evaluation. You have the feedback is really narrative based on how those questions are given to you and then the answers you receive. It's more of your perception. And as board members, you may not see every little detail about what the superintendent is doing on a regular basis. So that can be kind of hard to answer certain things, and that's why we also recommend sometimes having feedback from those that are working with the superintendent. It looks like the evaluation, based on what I saw on the form, is facilitated by your curriculum director. And then you have, it doesn't appear that you have like a targeted feedback survey or a formal way of getting that information that I was talking about as far as from the community or staff or people who are working directly with the superintendent to kind of put that up against what you see as board members for a more comprehensive view of how the superintendent is performing. And then the results are discussed in the executive session, which is what we do, and then they said something about you share them verbally. Now, on our side, in comparison to what you have, we have those 8 leadership standards. And as I said, board goals are not the same as superintendent goals. So that's one of the things that we differentiate with our process is that the board has goals, but then you also have superintendent goals. And those superintendent goals are really supposed to be linked to that evaluation that you give them based on those 8 standards of leadership. Again, I mentioned that ours is kind of a year-long process, like you all are talking about the superintendent evaluation process now. I don't know what you've been doing up until this point, but we really talk about that year-long process where you're establishing what you're going to evaluate at the beginning of the year, right after you finish the last evaluation. And then you're having check-ins. If they're not quarterly, then at least a mid-year check-in, just to kind of make sure that you're monitoring progress and that you are heading in the direction that you want to, or if there's an opportunity to change things around. That's a really good thing to have instead of waiting until the end of the year and then just like having all of these things weigh on your superintendent to approve what they've been doing and what progress they've been making all at one time. Our model also has that feedback in there, and also it's board-led. You can have us facilitated, but the idea of having somebody outside the district facilitated is really helpful to have like a third party rather than having a staff member like your curriculum director or the board chair take all the pressure of gathering information and then trying to make determinations about the superintendent's evaluation from one person's point of view. It's really nice to have a third party to kind of so that everybody can participate in the process well, and also that we don't create situations where maybe staff that directly report to the superintendent are having to be too heavily involved in the process of their boss's evaluation. So really, that's just kind of a comparison to what you have. I just wanted to kind of show what you're currently doing, and it's a really good foundation. I just think some things could be added to it to try and help make it more measurable, and to also kind of make it less about your perception as board members and just bringing in some real data and information. So we have things that are measurable, and we're really focusing on the performance and not just the board goals, but the superintendent goals as well. So looking at the timeline, the timeline here reflects both your current process and a potential path forward if you would like to incorporate some of the elements that we have in our model. I tried to break it down that January, the board completes those evaluation forms through the Google form, and then in February, discussing the executive session. And then you have a decision, you provide that written evaluation and contract, the renewal decisions are made by March. And then in the spring, you have that renewal or extension is confirmed in open session. Our OSBA model, as I said, is kind of a year-long process. So if you're adopting your evaluation, or if you're completing your formal evaluation by March 15th, as I said, you start over right again. And based on that previous year's evaluation and things that have come out of it, then you start making decisions about what you're going to evaluate next year. And then you also talk about the goals that you're going to set for the superintendent specifically based on what has come out of that evaluation and potential strengths and areas of growth based on what the board wants to do to make sure that their goals are aligned with the board's goals. You want to set those in the spring around April or May, and then with ours we have quarterly check-ins or mid-year check-ins, so you want to be doing those check-ins between July and September. If you are going to have some sort of feedback, you would have that happening in about October, November, just so you can have all the information and pair it with your own individual board member evaluations before you go into that executive session in February or March. So what did I want to point out here? So really, because you're kind of in the middle of the year, I know that you're looking to change some things. We don't typically recommend changing what you're evaluating the superintendent on kind of mid-cycle. I would always recommend that you continue on with your process. Maybe there's a way to incorporate some things into it this year, but you don't want to completely change what you're doing in the middle of the process, because then the superintendent doesn't really have a lot of time before January and February to kind of switch gears if things are going to be looked at that they weren't anticipating. So I just want to kind of point that out. Let's see. Okay, so I talked a lot about that idea of district goals versus superintendent goals. And I really want to break it down just a little bit, because it is common to see an overlap between the district goals and the superintendent goals, but they really serve different purposes. Now, the district goals, they belong to the board. They reflect what your shared priorities are for student learning and also for system improvement. Now, the superintendent goals, on the other hand, are really supposed to focus on leadership actions by the superintendent. There is how the superintendent guides, manages, and supports the whole district to achieve the board's priorities and goals. So for example, if the district goal is to improve early literacy, then the superintendent goal might focus on leading data-informed reinforce each other, but it's keeping the board focused on the what is to be achieved, and then the superintendent focused on how it's supposed to be achieved. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense with what we have up here.
Jen,
So
Jen, can I, really quick? So I feel like a lot of the times during our processes that we've had, when we set these district goals, we end up with so many because our goals that we set are pretty broad, and they are goals that would typically spans over more than just 1 year. So would it be common, I mean, how often, because I don't really feel like we change the goals, we just change the focus of the goal. So I don't know that, like, how often would changing district goals versus changing superintendent goals? I would see the superintendent's goal for the year be different based on where we've moved into that district goal. Does that make sense? Like Steve said, we do our district goals. We talk about them. They're always pretty much the same, or they're a growing goal, and so then we add something else, and that goal's still going. But so then we have 15 goals or 8 goals or whatever. But it's really the broader picture is focus, priorities adopted by the board. So would you say that if we really worked on setting our district goal, I guess what I'm saying is the board goals, how often would we really need to change? I mean, I would say that we would look at them, but how often would they really change versus focusing on, okay, we're at the next step, what do the superintendent's goals need to be? At least is what I'm kind of getting from what you're talking about and what I'm reading. Is that?
And one of the things to think about here with that is typically board goals or district goals are set as part of your strategic planning and priorities. Most of the time, strategic planning and priorities are every 3 to 5 years. They're long term, correct?
Yes.
So those are things that you want to achieve in a 3 to 5 year period. Now, you have these goals, and typically when we're doing strategic planning with districts, we try to get you to limit your priorities to about 4 or 5, and then have some goals underneath those. So yes, you can end up with quite a few, but those are over the period in the course of 3 to 5 years. Now, the superintendent goals, typically we would recommend 1 or 2 superintendent goals that are really focused on their performance based on what we've determined from their evaluation. If they have certain areas of strength or growth that we would like them to work on in that year to make sure that these overarching goals that we have as a district are being achieved. So really those are aligned with what the board wants, but you don't want to be focusing on all of those goals all at once. You have 3 to 5 years.
And I feel like that's what we do. I feel like that's what we do, and then it just kind of becomes lost maybe, I don't know, not as focused. And I also read something in here too that like the superintendent would draft the goals, you know, based on whatever it is, wherever we're at, if we're in year 1 of that strategic planning or year 5 of that strategic planning, and then we get together and discuss it when we decide on that. And I really like that idea, so that, because lots of times when we set a goal, I think, oh, that's how we're going to show, or that's what we're going to do to get there, or that's how you're going to give us that feedback, or how you met that goal, and maybe that's not what somebody else was thinking how you were going to do. You know what I mean? So we have a little bit more clarity and about what it is that we're actually evaluating.
Yeah, I think you're definitely on the right path, and you're thinking, and that's the idea with this too, is that when you're looking at a 3 to 5 year plan for goals, then you want to focus on this first year. These are our highest priorities. This is what we want you to focus on, and based on the areas of growth that you have and the things that we want to achieve in this first year, to ensure that we continue that for year 2 and 3 and 4. You know, we want to make sure you're focusing on this area, and it's a continual building. So after you evaluate how they're doing on those superintendent goals, aligned with those board goals in that first year, then in the second year, you start to reevaluate, okay, we're doing really well here in these goal areas based on their performance here. Now I want you to focus on this for year 2. And I want to do that based on what we've seen so far. And that's also kind of what we talk about those check-ins and alignments. The check-ins really offer you an opportunity to be like, okay, we're doing really well in this area. This is not what we thought was going to happen, so maybe we need to change things and or change progress or redirect at certain times. And the same thing happens with your strategic goals too. You have something that you set for 3 to 5 years, but the board should be evaluating that on a regular basis to see, based on the data and the trends, is this where we want it to go, or do we need to change course? And so that's how they kind of both work together, but they're not actually the same thing. So I hope that that's a little bit clear, but it is definitely something to think about. If you are using just your board goals continuously for evaluating the superintendent, it may be too much for a single year of evaluation.
Agreed. I think Wayne agrees.
No, I think you made a good point, Heather. We used to have 12 to 15 goals that we were working on, and I really have appreciated the board has really narrowed those down to 4 that were really our district overarching goals, and then, yeah, I have my own superintendent goals as well. So
Yeah, because even those goals that we have as a board, I feel are pretty broad, and so I like
Definitely.
the idea of even narrowing it down for you so that there's a little bit better way to evaluate that process, and we can actually have some kind of when it's broad, right, then there's more room for everybody to judge different kinds of things. When it's narrowed down, then it makes it a little bit more honed into what it is we're really looking at, which I like about
And
that,
that's,
by the way.
yeah, and that's one of the reasons why we say that we think the superintendent should present their own goals, because the superintendent sees where the board wants to go. They see your vision, and then they can incorporate the feedback that they received on their evaluation and determine, like, okay, how do I put that into action? And what can I work on this year to make sure that we're going towards where the board ultimately wants to be? And those are the kind of ways that we chunk things down into more manageable and measurable goals that are actually achievable within a year's period of time, and not trying to cram all 5 years worth of goals into a one evaluation period. And if the superintendent can look at what the goals of the board is and the district overall, then they also know how to put that into action. That's their expertise. So then they help develop it, and then the board can say, yeah, I want those things. And there's also things that the board can do outside of the superintendent evaluation to ensure that you are achieving those goals, where you can make your goals as part of like every agenda item that you bring up. Just, hey, can you just let us know part of what goal this is, so that we know what we're looking at and what we need to go back to when we're evaluating if we're making progress in those areas. And that doesn't have to be directly related to their goals of their evaluation, but it can be something that the board does throughout the year that you can kind of tie things to the larger district goals. And then that also provides the superintendent an availability or option to take those items and use those as artifacts of evidence when they get to their evaluations. Do you remember when we talked about this and the progress we were making, the data I presented here on this meeting date? That's my artifact of evidence to say that I'm performing well, or I need to improve in that area. Any other thoughts or questions about the district goals versus superintendent goals element? Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that targeted feedback survey option. And really for the targeted feedback survey, this is an optional tool that's not always well received. Some boards don't like reaching out to others. They want to kind of keep it just to what they see. But as I said, the board members can't see everything that the superintendent is doing every day. And so it's really helpful when the board can gather this confidential input from those that work closely with the superintendent. It's not a public survey, like I mentioned. It really focuses on the leadership behaviors of the superintendent that are tied to those 8 performance evaluation standards, like communication, visibility, and trust. Now, OSBA, for doing your facilitation for your superintendent evaluation, this targeted feedback survey is something that we administer because we have proprietary rights. We actually take those different performance standards and we develop questions specifically to get answers related to that, not just to get everything that people want to say about the superintendent. So the OSBA administers remember, as you're preparing to do that larger evaluation, we summarize the results anonymously, and that's the other part about being a third party is that you don't see specifically like what people said, and so you might be able to determine who said them. We pull it all together and we kind of find ongoing themes rather than specific answers or specific instances that people provide. We share those with the board in the executive session, and then that feedback really helps you to balance their perception with evidence. You're supporting a fair and more comprehensive evaluation this way. So like when we say, and even for our targeted feedback survey, we say, okay, there are 8 performance standards, only 7 of them are really evaluated in our survey, and we ask the board to choose no more than 3 of those standards for us to put in the survey and ask specific questions. First of all, so we are not asking a ton of questions to people and getting like survey fatigue. We really want to hone in on what are the areas we want to focus on, what are the performance areas that we want to focus on. And so we target the questions to those performance standards, and then we target the audience as well. And we say, okay, from staff and from community partners, people who work directly with the superintendent on these specific areas, who is it that should receive those? And then the board also kind of makes those decisions about the standards and who they're going to send it to in an open public session. So it is open, and you do have a very targeted, not just in the questions, not just in the standards, but also in the audience. It's going to be giving you the information to make sure that they really have the ability to answer those questions because they are working closely with the superintendent and they would know what they're doing. It's not just a popularity kind of thing where you're just putting it out there and being like, hey, what does everybody think of our superintendent? And that's one of the reasons why we really like to focus, because we find we don't get a lot of good information when you're just putting it out there, kind of blanket or broad statements, and we try to receive survey input and really make it work for what you're doing. So let's see. As I said, for this year, it's not something that I would necessarily recommend you change up or add too quickly, but some boards have chosen to do that kind of midstream. I don't think it's, but you can think about it as maybe there's a way to do it this year in the process you already have. I don't know if you have any other surveys or ways that you collect information from staff or community partners currently with your process. Can you speak to that?
We don't.
We don't.
Do we have any climate surveys or anything like that?
No.
Climate surveys? Okay. So it might be something you might want to consider for future ones, because it just provides that additional information for the boards that you have not only your individual perceptions and your individual feedback and then of course the superintendent's self-evaluation where they're presenting items that they've done to go towards the progress. And then you have this additional element is how is that being received and what are people seeing in that are working directly with the superintendent. So it's just another element of gathering data and information into the process. All right, so here's just a few key reminders that I just want to kind of put in here as we're wrapping up regarding this process that boards need to know. The superintendent evaluation and contract renewal must be finalized by that March 15th date. That's in Oregon law, but it's also your superintendent's contract, if I read that correctly. Each year, the board must adopt the evaluation process in open session. So I don't know if you're doing this previously, but really the criteria and the process you're going to use for the superintendent, you are supposed to adopt that out in the open at one of your public meetings so that the public is also aware of how the board intends on evaluating the superintendent. This ensures that transparency, not just with your superintendent, but also with the public, so that they're aware that this is how you're holding your superintendent accountable and these are the things you're looking for, and you just kind of put that out in the open. The discussion and the drafts of the actual evaluation is, of course, confidential, and unless, of course, the superintendent requests for it to be open. But typically that is confidential, all those materials, any targeted feedback survey results, any individual board member stuff, and then that discussion you have when you're actually evaluating the superintendent, that's all confidential under executive session. The only thing that comes out in the public that is also required to be out in the public is that statement, that final summary statement that, hey, you conducted the superintendent's evaluation as part of what we're supposed to do, and then you're letting the public know that that
Issued a public
happened.
summary statement? We issued a public summary statement before?
No.
I didn't think so.
Just get a
We just renewed the
a
contract.
full copy
Yeah.
of
Yeah, I
all the
didn't-
comments. That's what I've received so far.
Yeah, but everything stays confidential, but we've never done the public summary statement, I guess.
Summary?
Yeah,
Yeah.
which does help with
Honestly,
transparency, but it's one that's drafted by our board collectively. It's not the individual comments, correct?
Yeah, not the individual comments, not any of that information. It's really a very basic summary that said, we conducted the survey, we have decided, usually it happens when that contract renewal comes up, you say, okay, we conducted an evaluation, we had a successful evaluation, we're going to renew their contracts. And that's sometimes what people do, they kind of combine it all into one, but we really like to keep the contract renewal process separate from the superintendent evaluation process. We also like to keep transparency, just by having that public announcement. We did our obligatory job, we've done what we're supposed to do, we evaluated the superintendent, and we found that they've been successful. And then, the superintendent will be sharing later on some of the goals for this year, or you're adopting new criteria for next year. That should all be open public session. Let's see, where was I? I think confidentiality, public summary. Oh, and then that idea is that once you've completed that, and you said, okay, we've done this, here's our public summary statement. And I can provide kind of an example of what that looks like if you are interested. I'll write a note to myself now, just to show you what that kind of looks like, that final summary statement. It's really very simple. Make a note really quick to make sure you can see that. And then once that's done, then you typically have your decision as to whether you're going to continue contract, if you're at the contract renewal point, and then your evaluation period starts that next cycle where you just go through and say, okay, based on the evaluation this year, the superintendent has developed some goals. We're going to talk about those goals. We're going to use this criteria. These are the standards we're going to focus on for this year. These are the superintendent goals we're going to focus on for this year. This is going to be our timeline. Here's some dates that we're going to have some check-ins. This is when the board's going to come together to conduct a survey. So you kind of put that timeline, the process, everything you're going to use to evaluate. You make those decisions and open, and then you just stick to that timeline for the rest of the year. All right, so I just wanted to remind you this process is not just about accountability. So it's about supporting the superintendent to succeed in the role that you hired them to do. And it's about building trust. It's about ensuring alignment with your goals and the things you want to happen in the district. But it's also creating those systems that keeps the entire leadership team, the board, and the superintendent focused on the students. So before we close, I have a couple of questions up there. We don't have to necessarily answer them all. But if you want you to take a few moments to maybe reflect on it, maybe we can share some things about what we've covered so far about your current process and maybe what you would look to change in the future and how we can maybe help you with that. Maybe just go around, is there any thoughts? Is there one thing that you're thinking that you'd like to see continue with the current process or maybe change for next year?
Are you asking us if there's going to be a change?
No, I'm asking you, if, based on what we talked about, and for those of you who have gone through the process before as you're currently doing it, and I've shared a little bit about how we do it a little differently, is there something that you like about the current process of evaluation that you want to continue, or is there maybe something that you think you'd like to add to it?
For myself, I do like the idea of setting the goals based on the overall district, the overarching goals of the district, the board goals, but I appreciate more them being more specific and having more of being more measurable. It doesn't really make sense if it's too difficult for us to measure them, I guess just narrowing down and having a specific measurement to be able to provide a better evaluation. I also like collecting targeted input back to kind of help. Mm-hmm. I like that it sounds like they're just 1 through 5 kind of rate as a 1 through 5, and then that helps you guys be able to determine, as opposed to collecting a bunch of narratives. That helps speed that up. I really like that, but then that gets some input across the board.
What else? I like that Wayne gets to help drawing his own goals a lot because those what we've done so far is overarching so big that sometimes I think, oh, that's how he's going to show it, right? And great, but we didn't really talk about that. So now we know, or this will allow us to say, we know how Wayne's going to show from day one or process one in the beginning of the evaluation. And I like the check-in, whether or not we do it quarterly or we do it
At least
mid-year.
biannually.
Yeah, I like the check-in. I know that we go through all those board goals, or at least we were going through those board goals, and it seemed like a lot. It kind of added to the meeting a little bit and made it a little bit longer. But I like having a specific purpose meeting just to be able to go over those. And maybe it doesn't need to, if there's only 2 to 3 goals, it wouldn't really add, because we're not doing it all the time. You know, it could be more specific. So those were my thoughts.
Okay, that's great. I took some notes.
We need to wrap.
Yeah, we do need to wrap up. Our meeting is starting in a few minutes.
Yeah.
I guess my only question is, and I suppose we'll need to discuss this more, but if we want to go with the, like, I liked what I have heard, because I feel like it sounds way more effective than what we're doing and more specific. What would be the next step? I mean, yes, we're going to this year do what we're doing, and it's so late in the year already, you know, it's November. So, is there a cost if we go with this, if we have OSBA help us? That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, and I can provide a proposal to you. As I said, you'll probably stick to what you're doing this year. So my recommendation is that if you're going to change anything or you're going to consider new criteria, possibly what we have as our model, then you would talk about that after this evaluation cycle is done. You would kind of set those goals and things as soon as you're finished. You might have a meeting in, say, March or April, where you can write a proposal, you can consider it, you might want to consider others too. But you can look at if you want to, what elements you want. You'll decide if you want to have superintendent goals. You'll decide if you want to have which performance standards, if you're going to go for all of them, if you're going to have that target feedback surveys part of it. And what I can do is I can provide a proposal. You can talk about that. There would be targets for us to help facilitate it, and I can break that down as well. But we really just kind of go hand in hand and work with you, and I can have a breakdown about how many hours and what that kind of looks like. And the board can look at that, and then you can determine based on what you determine from this year's evaluation, like how you want to proceed forward. But even for this year's evaluation, since you said that you don't know that you're necessarily doing those summaries and stuff like that, maybe we can help you to assist on how to write one of those from this year, so you can have that out in public before you transition into talking about what we're going to do for next year. And we can come in and help with that as well.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me, and I will forward some information. I took some notes on it, and I will give you this as well, so the board can look over it, as well as the proposal for what that would look like for next year, so you can determine when it's best for you to consider that.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you in December.
for a flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion we approve tonight's agenda and the regular board meeting.
Second.
I have a motion by Steve to approve the agenda and a second by Marcia. All in favor? Aye. Okay, I need to approve the minutes. We didn't do that.
I'll make a motion to approve the regular board meeting minutes from 10/8/25.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion from Heather and a second by Marcia to approve the regular board meeting minutes from October 8th. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have board training December 9th, and then we have our next regular board meeting January 14th. Okay, anything, I guess we'll move on. 2.0, board goals. Improve student achievement across all curriculum areas, and that's going to be Armando Ruiz and Tanya Singo.
All right, hey, thank you, school board, for having us for this presentation tonight about improving student achievement in all areas. That's going really well by our district data. I do want to say that, you know, student achievement starts with the teachers. Okay, the teachers that we put in front of our students is the most important thing we do. And so the district level data, that is data from all 5 of our schools, in ELA, math, and science, shows that we've had an improvement, although a small improvement, an improvement in each of these areas. Broken down to the proficiency areas, meeting, which is a level 3, or exceeding, which is a level 4, in ELA, math, and science, which are the tested subjects through the Oregon State Assessment System. In ELA, 13% exceeded and 28% met in 23-24, which is a total of 41% proficient. And then this past year, 24-25, that went up 1%. A minuscule amount of growth, but nevertheless still headed in the right direction. With 5% more exceeding that year, but 4% less, toward level 3. In math, there was a 3% gain district-wide, 12% exceeded and 16% met in 23-24 for an overall 28% proficient. And then the following year, last year's data showed a 3% increase. In science, there's only a few grades that are tested in science, 5th, 8th, and 11th. And so that data is only for those 3 grades. And we had an 8% improvement, which from 18% to 26%. We're still, not where we want to be, obviously, with those scores, but we are trending in the right direction. I'm going to talk a little bit about Lincoln School of Early Learning. That's where the magic all starts. We have, preschool, daycare, pre-K, and so there's professional learning communities at Lincoln School of Early Learning. I'll talk a little bit about that at CBE as well. Those professional learning communities meet weekly. They're grade level teams that meet and talk about how to best support students. The student study team is another important aspect of our elementary schools, where students who need interventions and supports, we have meetings where we look at data and talk about students and how we can best support them in schools. The vertical alignment of the curriculum is really important for all grades, but we're really working on that in our Senate Bill 141. That's an important committee for our district-wide improvement. And so we have members from Lincoln on that team, members from CBE, members from Winter Lakes Elementary. IXL is an important diagnostic tool that we use across CBE and Lincoln School of Early Learning to get some really important data. We have our statewide data, which gives us what students can know and do and proficiency in their grade level. We also have IXL data that gives us another way of measuring that. And so that gives us some ability to differentiate for students, challenge them more, remediate when necessary. That's a really good program that we like at Lincoln. UFly, that's phonics that they use for the adopted curriculum to make sure students, know the sounds of the letters, to put those sounds together. Chunking and just all the segmenting and blending and all the phonics things they need to know for being ready to learn. Broad Street is an important a curriculum that we adopted for content area instruction and students at the age of 3 in the early literacy of the preschool daycare. Another thing at Lincoln School of Early Learning that's done is additional EA support with the push-in model for Title I. If you remember, we talked about a change at Lincoln where we have more EA supports in the classroom because of the Title I push-in model. So those are some of the great things happening at Lincoln. CBE, the biggest gains from the data, because we test 3rd through 6th grade at CBE for ELAs and math. The biggest gains were 24-25, 6% in 5th grade science and in 6th grade math. We'll share a little bit more data about CBE here in a minute. The science curriculum has been huge. We talk about students having a well-rounded education. That's very important at all of our schools. And so we have mystery science, we have HMH, we have our 5th and 6th graders getting science instruction every single day. So that's going really well. Again, PLCs are professional learning communities. I'll have a slide where I talk a little bit more about those, but we have our grade level teams and we have content teams now with our 5th and 6th grade teachers. A more curricular alignment, teachers just working really hard about what are those things that students need to know and perform at a high level to be ready for the next grade. We have Title I intervention at our school. We still have Mrs. Eklund supporting students in small groups with reading fluency and progress monitoring, just getting more and more data to see when students are going to, be able to hopefully get out of Title I to be, at the grade level and doing the work they need to be able to do. We also have Plus After School, and that gives students some extra support in a lot of different areas. So I talked about our professional learning communities. These are the teams we have at CDE. We have an assessment and data team that's looking at just formative assessment, classroom data, DIBELS, IXL, accelerated reader, just a lot of different data, and using that data to inform instruction. PBIS. We've been doing PBIS for many years at Coquille Valley, but every year I feel like it could use some tweaks just to get kids to buy in more. So we have a PBIS team that really helps with those positive reinforcement strategies and incentives for kids. Curriculum and instruction, again, just what are those important things that we need to teach that we need to make sure kids understand and can know and do at that grade level so they're ready for the next grade level, and so on and so forth. Coming back this year has been a great year. I feel like staff morale has been really positive, and so has culture of the school and the students. But we have a staff morale team that's been having some really great ideas for things to do in the school to improve things. And then I talked a little bit about our 3rd grade ELA team and how their goal is to raise student achievement and continue to raise that data score. We've identified some weaknesses in writing that we can really focus and hone in on. And then I got one more slide that has some data. So this kind of breaks it down to our grade levels. When you're looking at 23, 24, you can kind of track kids by looking at, like for instance, 3rd grade English, 23, 24, 42.4. Well, that next year, those same kids actually went down close to 4%. And if you look at math, those same kids trended down, right? So we could ask lots of questions about that, and that's important data to know and analyze. But you can also see that when you're comparing the growth from one year to the next, for instance, 5th to 6th, because remember last year we had self-contained 5th grade, and now we have specialist teaching 5th and 6th grade. So if we look at 5th grade, where they were at 54.1% in 23-24, the following year they were at 58.2%. Same group of kids went up, substantial 4%. But then the math is where you see a dramatic gain, where you see a 40% math score for proficiency in 5th grade. Well, that went up close to 15% the next year in Mrs. Pugmeyer's class. And so that's a huge gain. That shows, that we're continuing to increase in ELA, math, and then in science, we had a 6% increase. And so we're making steady gains, and we're continuing to make progress that we would like to see.
All right, so at Coquille Junior Senior High School, again, we're doing kind of a drone view and then bringing it down a little bit lower so you can see more specific. In English language arts, there were gains for 7th grade in the last testing cycle. Likewise for math, the same 7th grade group and the 11th grade group marked gains in math. And we also marked gains in science for our 11th grade students. Some changes this year to work on boosting academic success is the advisory period that Ms. Yee and Mr. Dixon have included in their daily schedule. It's after, help me out, third period? After third period, it's a time for students to get some academic support, to work on college and career readiness activities, and also to receive Wayfinder, which is our social emotional learning instruction. Also this year at the junior senior high school, we've added some extra expanded options courses that are taught by our own teachers, which is a nice connection for our kids. It's kind of like college light. They have the expectation of college, but yet they're being taught by instructors who know them and understand who they are and where they're coming from. So sort of parallel to the initial slide that Principal Ruiz shared with you, we have here the data for our 7th, 8th, and 11th grade students. And I'll let the board just take a moment to marinate upon those. We thought it was important to share the exceed versus the just meeting, because at the district level, if you recall back to the first slide, while we might have had a lower percentage meet the proficiency standard, in many of our content areas, we increased the number of students who exceeded that. So that in and of itself is a nice gain. I do want to call out specifically in the 11th grade testing band that we had 0% exceeding in science, and we had 20% meeting. And this year, we were able to mark 7% exceeding and 18% meeting. So we're showing some gains there. And we believe that a lot of that is owing to the board and its adoption of the revised curriculum that matches up with next-gen science standards. Next slide. At Winter Lakes Elementary this year, we have purchased some English language arts workbooks, which we're working with our kinder to 5th grade population to really get them to grade level so they can access their learning. They're not going to learn a single thing in the Imagine Learning platform if they aren't able to read. So we're working to kind of double dip with that instruction. We have added Prodigy Math, which is a gamified math platform. Predominantly, Mr. Clapper's classroom has really taken a hold of that. In grades 2 and 3, I had a student come up to me the other day and say, my parents taught me the Prodigy Math so I can practice at home because they love me. And I said, yes, they do. Yes, they do. And they got turned on to that from Mr. Clapper's class. We've also added Epic Reading, which allows teachers to have free access to multiple titles that are leveled at different grade levels so that hopefully we don't have as much of an expenditure in buying real books. I love real books, but it is a cost, and so this has multiplied our library potential by a huge factor. We are also offering, as we have in years past, Mrs. Dunn, our general ed EA, is offering small group intervention for both math and English, and she does this across all grade levels. She'll have a K2 group, she'll have a 6, 7, 8 group, and so throughout the day she hosts those students in her space to help them get to grade level. This year, in addition to the digital curriculum that we have, when we have our students in front of us, we are trying to the greatest extent possible to offer direct instruction. Because we know that offering direct instruction, giving real-time feedback, and immediate correction is what's going to help students really achieve and grow and not imprint on some incorrect information. And this year we do have some different teaching assignments. So we have Mr. Gilbert teaching our kinder and first grade. Amy May and Cassie Green have been instrumental in providing support to Mr. Gilbert and also to Mr. Clapper in the area of youth life. So working with them and giving them more of a toolkit when it deals with phonics. Mr. Clapper is teaching grades 2 and 3, and I will mention that these two classrooms are typically rather full. I have about 14 K1, I usually have 12 regular attenders. And in my 2-3, I have 24 enrolled, I usually have about 17 regular attenders there. Ms. Robeson is back teaching 4th and 5th grade to round out our elementary complement. These are our testing scores. And I do want to give a caveat. I know there's a lot of information in the board has in the packet and can reference it. The number of students testing is very small. So when you have a dozen kids testing at a grade level and 5 of them do really well, it's, wow, we had 45% meet, which I'm not taking away from those 5 kids who did really well. But the figures are somewhat skewed when you consider that in other schools and other grade levels, like at CDE, you're looking at 50, 60 students. And then again, we do have a lot of students who are totally virtual and do not come on campus to test, so that makes our sample rather small. We obviously have work to do in many areas, and some of the actions that we've taken this year we believe are going to help to steer us in an upward trajectory when it comes to state testing. Next slide, please. At Winter Lakes High School, there have been changes made there as well in terms of trying to meet the needs of students. There is a greater emphasis on direct instruction for our students who attend in person, specifically in math, science, English, and social studies that are taught in tandem or to augment what is already being delivered in the online platform. There is some co-teaching happening at Winter Lakes High School this year that we're pretty excited about, where we have Mr. Artman and Mr. Riney who are working with collaborating in American Lit and U.S. history and the crosswalk that exists there. We are also offering some different standalone courses in those content areas to speak to student need and to bring students to grade level. We are offering direct instruction in algebra and geometry with Mrs. Timms, and we found that to be really effective in supporting students and offering them, again, that feedback. In science, we are working on offering project-based learning this year with Mr. Rasmussen on campus there and giving students some options of how they can really get their hands on science and access it not just in a conceptual way. At Winter Lakes High School this year, they have provided a common office hour for student support from 4 to 5 p.m. where all instructors are available to support students either virtually or in person if they happen to be still on campus. And each instructor has an office hour throughout the day, and they happen at varying times so that students can access support again in real time during the school day. They do also offer support Friday mornings by appointment and virtually at Winter Lakes High School. This is the information from the 11th grade group at Winter Lakes High School. It's the only grade level that tests. We were able to increase our exceeding in English, and we dropped a little bit in reading. We are still working in math to make improvements, and again, we hope that some of these direct instruction interventions will allow for some improvement there. And then we had an 18% science exceeder meet last year, and then the most recent year we had an 11. So again, we know that we have work to do in those areas. I do also want to reiterate that an Oregon State assessment is a 1 day in time or maybe 2 days in time measurement. And we really are across the district using IXL very frequently to do weekly, daily touch points to see how our kids are attending and what we can do to meet their needs better in real time. Are there any questions for us?
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to our school program written reports. I'm going to check them off as I go so I don't skip anybody. Let's start with Winter Lakes High School. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Clapper? Have you guys gotten a new teacher? You posted for one?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I hope that's going good. Well. Okay, any questions? All right, let's move on to Winter Lakes Elementary School and our curriculum director. Does anyone have any questions for Tanya Cinco? So I saw the good news that we got that grant, which you originally thought we weren't gonna get.
They told us we would not receive it, and then we received it at a regional level. And so that's the youth development re-engagement grant, and it's just over $134,000 that is coming to our district, predominantly to Winter Lakes, because it targets 16 to 24 technically who have disengaged or are at the risk of disengaging from their education. So looking at avenue of GED options, testing, technology support, and personal support, in connecting with students.
Okay, great.
Love all the pictures.
I'm working very hard to, and it's a retro active, so my newsletter comes out at the end of the month, so we have content, and we, one of my amazing staff said, "Do we have a yearbook?" I said, "How about a memory book?" So we're using these pictures as fodder to build collage-style memories. Just ordered some digital cameras for my kids, so be looking for that at the end of the year.
Okay, let's move on to Coquille Junior High School. Does anyone have any questions for Albert Dixon? I hardly know what to do. I don't have a junior high student this year. So, like, I don't know what's going on over there. Okay, let's move on to 3.4, Coquille Senior High School. Any questions for Paige? I will say I was a little bit at the Powder Tough before I came here, and looks like a good time. If bad volleyball, but good time was being had. So. I'm sorry, the boys just aren't very good.
It affects you really hard.
So are there any questions for Paige? Okay, let's move on to 3.5, Coquille Valley Elementary School. We have the turkey trot coming up. It's
Yeah,
always a
that's what I
fun,
thought too,
fun
yeah.
event.
Hopefully good weather.
Next Thursday. Rain or shine as always.
Yep.
How was the crisis drones today?
That's a good question, you know, I decided to put it off till next week due to coming back after 5 days. I'm like, well, let's not have a disruption today, you know, let's have a normal day, and then we'll have disruption next week. So, we're gonna do it next week, after all.
Idea.
Okay, let's move on to 3.6, Lincoln School of Early Learning. Does anyone have any questions for Amy May? Okay. Let's move on to 3.7, our athletic director, Tony Jones. Does anyone have any questions regarding his report?
And you have an addition, in case you hadn't heard, we have added a state champion.
I did hear that, yeah.
Lincoln our three girls cross country champion, blew away the field on Saturday, won by a lot.
Awesome. That is great. Have you had any luck hiring coaches? I know we were short a fair number, a little, okay.
Yeah, we still need girls JV basketball, and it's looking like we'll need a JV boys coach also. Girls will turn out boys this year.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to say, I did see an article about the redistricting. It looks like that's going to be better for us, right? maybe less going to Medford, or,
Yeah, we
or,
haven't
and
done
no
it
Lakeview?
with
I mean,
But it would actually increase our lead travel a little bit.
oh,
However, if you increase lead travel, you kind of decrease non-lead travel, so it's a balance.
okay, all right.
Yeah, and they have 2 more regular meetings before the decision is made.
Oh, before it's final. Okay, I didn't realize that.
This is Monday the 17th and then December 1st for the last 2
Okay.
committee meetings.
All right, let's move on to 3.8, our technology supervisor, Sean Warbaugh. Is there any questions for Sean? There he is. I was like, thank you for setting up for our meeting today.
More than welcome.
Okay. Any questions for our food supervisor, Marcy Gallagher?
Lots of field trips in October, huh?
Okay, any questions for Nate, our transportation supervisor?
Did you learn anything new with your recertification?
Oh, yes.
Okay, let's move on to 3.12, or sorry, 3.11, our school resource deputy, John Owens. Any questions for
I
him?
love it when you bring us a report that's just this small. It's nice.
Okay, and I don't see Jeff Billy here, so can't ask him any questions. So let's move on to 4.0, our fiscal director's report.
Hello. No, isn't it beautiful? It's legal and it's in color and, so it looks like our projections, we're gonna end about $14,000 over our $1 million contingency for the school year. It is, beginning of the school year. However, that's still where we're projecting it as of September. Does anyone have any questions at all?
Okay, no questions? Thank you, Denise. Let's move on to 5.0, our superintendent's report.
We didn't have any correspondence to the board this month, but we do have a population report, and I do want to point out, looking at that bottom number, 1,194, that is 7 students down from where we were in our September monthly report, and that is 6 students below what we budgeted. So obviously, we are very concerned about our enrollment, and we're definitely monitoring that situation. But we set our budget at 1,200 students, and so we were at that level for October 1, but here at the end of October, we're down below that. So definitely something we're keeping an eye on and hoping that we can have some more students come and decide to join our district. I do also want to point out a couple of things that are coming up in the action discussion items. OSBA ballot is in your packet. Committee meeting process. So there is new Oregon accountability and public meeting law for transparency. So we can now, if we have 2 or more board members together for a meeting where there's going to be a recommendation or a decision made, that now counts as a public meeting. So we are going to have to discuss that tonight as a board and talk about how we want to deal with our facility committee meetings and our policy committee meetings. And then the boost, what's that?
And our agenda meeting.
And our a monthly agenda meeting, that's, yes, thank you, Marcia. And then the Booster Club is proposing a covered structure. Did that get in their packet? Okay. So I had a meeting with our new Booster Club, and they would like to build a covered.
75.
It's 75? So they want to build a covered structure next to our concession stand, and this would be something that their vision was that this would be a structure where they would be able to put the barbecue under and cook from if it was raining, and also if there were other groups doing bake sales or other kinds of items, they'd be able to be under the covered area as well. We are currently, we just got a design today as far as what their plot map would look like, and we are sending this to the city to see if we would need to have a building permit or not. But because this is new construction, it would be something the board would have to approve if you would like me to continue, as well as Tony, to continue to work with the new Booster Club and build this gazebo. That's all I have, unless there's some specific questions for me.
Okay, no questions for Wayne. We'll move on to our discussion action items, and the first thing is our OSBA ballot. I guess Julie has put it in our packet here. There's several people who are, let's see, how am I supposed to do this? Is there the ballot somewhere that we say?
It's in the back.
Okay.
It's on page 73.
Okay. So there's just one thing that we have to decide, right, between these two people?
Mhm.
Steve, for the Legislative Policy Committee, position 9, Stephen Hamerson or Jeanette Holland. So if you want to take a minute and look at their resumes, what they have listed.
They can fill them out and give them to me.
On that actual ballot, if each board member would just vote individually, and then on number 4, put your name, and then tear that out and send it down, Julie will actually submit it for you.
Okay, so we don't have one vote as a board?
I think you vote individually.
I'm on OSB
Really?
right now.
Okay.
So all we do is fill it first, the first thing?
I guess, and then you just say
Yep.
Coquille School District. Today's the 12th.
Will you fill out the rest of it here, or do we need to actually?
Oh, this does say
If
it's
you
a
can
board
just,
action.
if you can just check who you have and then your name,
So-
send it down.
We're gonna
Can we
have to
just-
make a,
We'll just hand them to you.
Can we just hand them to you? Yeah, because we do, it does look like we have to put it in, type the name of the
Yep.
district or community college that officially made this vote. So can we just do it and send it, and then whatever the majority is, Julie can,
I don't know, do we have to do it publicly?
you have to do it publicly.
I think we might have to do it publicly then.
Actually state the vote.
So
There's no secret
this is
ballot.
strange to me because it says,
Says send me a copy of my response.
Yeah.
Because typically.
so is this an individual
Yeah.
person?
Here's
or-
individual.
Yeah,
They do it online.
yeah.
So,
So I guess.
in the
just do it.
past, last year, we didn't vote on people, but we were just yes or no.
They
Yes
were
or no, yeah.
resolutions
but
you
number
voted
3
on.
says type the meeting date when the board officially made
Yeah,
this
so that's
vote.
why we
So-
need to vote.
Okay.
Or you need to vote.
So, has everyone made their
Okay.
decision? I'll just, I think we have to do it publicly, honest, or do we not have to?
No,
I would assume we have to, but,
Okay,
Yeah.
So then you don't need this, you just need us to,
we just need to state who you're voting for.
yeah, I don't know what this,
Melinda, are you gonna just ask for all those that are voting for whatever?
well, I'll just go down.
Yeah, do a roll call, so.
We
Let's
have
do a
to-
roll
We
call
have to do
vote.
roll
So-
call vote.
Sharon? Okay. Are you keeping track of this, Julie?
Mhm.
Okay, Kayla,
Stephen Henderson.
Heather,
Stephen Henderson.
Janet Holland.
Marcia?
Jana Holland?
I'll say Stephen Hemerson as well. So that's a vote.
Done.
Okay, let's move on to 6.2, the committee meeting process. How do we want to change our committees? One suggestion is that we rotate the, well, this works for policy committee. I don't know that it works for
Facility.
facilities committee, but policy committee is a lot more people than just the board members. It's, administrative staff and stuff like that. So we could rotate one person, instead of having 3 people there, which we've had in the past, we could rotate one person to be the school board's voice on there when they meet. I don't.
Will you lose consistency and understanding what's going on?
It's not gonna be as good, I'm gonna say that. Like, it's better to have more voices.
It's
than-
either that or we have to publicly have the meetings available for the world to access.
So what's,
Does that mean that you just have to have an open meeting when you have your?
I think we have to stream it.
We have to stream it.
Post the
Where do we
agenda.
get that clarified?
What do you mean, where?
That, like, where do we clarify the information for the meeting, whether it has to be streamed or?
It does.
It does
It
have
does
to
have
be.
to be streamed.
It does have to be streamed.
So why don't we just do that? Is that too much? I mean,
I
It is.
think it would make it hard for some of our
Yes.
administrators to
To actually talk and be honest and transparent. And policy committee at least.
in policy
I mean,
committee.
I
I
can't-
don't think that it's an issue with
Facility.
facilities,
would
but I
agree.
haven't been to facilities
Right.
committee, but.
I would think the facility
I don't think there's any.
initiative.
So would you rather just make that a public meeting for
It's gonna be
facilities?
kind of hard to make the facilities committee a public meeting
We're
because
remote.
we go to the facility that we're
Yeah.
at
And actually tour and look at.
and tour.
But it'd have to be public if there's
It's
more
not a
than
very
2 of
good
you.
law.
So you need to get a body cam, Wayne.
And we have to, and then it has to be like, advertised and made accessible.
I don't think that's the.
Or not more than 2.
No, it's not more,
If there's.
not
if
more
there's
than one.
2.
So then
Yeah.
with the
Yes,
facilities
2 or
meeting,
more.
sometimes we all have different schedules anyway. I mean, we could just go by ourselves with Wayne if you have to tour. I mean, I know that makes it, there's 3 of us, 3 different meetings. But I don't really, for policy meeting, or for policy, you're all in the same place all at the same time and you're not touring. I don't really see a different way for facilities meeting, unless it was something like we're looking at plans somewhere, you know, architecture, but usually we're at the site. And sometimes it's only 15 minutes or, and then we're gone, you know, and then we're gone. We talk about it. Or you give us the information that we need, and then whatever.
Wayne, is there a way for you to find out how other superintendents are handling this?
Yeah, we did check into what other districts are doing. So some districts are now having 2 board meetings a month, where one would be the business meeting like this, and one board meeting would be the policy and committee meetings where I would bring recommendations to the board.
I told Wayne, nobody else
said
in the board
no.
would want to do that.
Okay,
We said no. And
All right.
these people don't want to do that
Then-
either.
Yeah, I mean, we could try that for a while if we want to have, I mean, policy committee meetings.
Are you able to have it as a work session, or does that still have to be?
No, that still has to be a public meeting.
Yeah, just,
If there's 2 or more.
But a work session doesn't require all of them to be here.
That is true, and I mean, we could do our policies different. The policies are the board's policies. I mean, we could bring the policy to the entire board and the board discuss it, and then we make recommendations.
But they are
it's a long process.
2-hour meetings.
Yeah, they're 2-hour meetings on top of.
Once a month.
Yeah, sometimes, I mean, when we get that stack of policies, sometimes we're trying to get through 20 policies in a meeting. So there's a lot of reading and language and, you know, making, is it a may or is it a shall? A lot of those kinds of decisions that are made, board members make those, and then we bring it back to the entire
Well,
board.
we make those, but we need the input of the staff, like
So
that's.
what do you suggest, you 2 are on policy
Yeah,
and
with Luke.
right? So what are you guys suggesting, that just one of you go represent? I mean, what do
I
you think?
guess.
I mean, that's my only thought of.
That's
to
kind of
have
the
the
only.
That's kind of what we.
The only option that I
without-
see for right now, unless we, I just don't, I feel like if we make it a public meeting, our administrators aren't going to be able to speak openly about issues that they've seen and why we need to be careful about a certain policy.
And usually names aren't brought up,
Yeah,
but
you-
if people are straining and able,
I don't
certain
know.
people could connect dots. And it's not for public.
So if one person goes, and we're all supposed to be responsible anyway, then there's a portion in our existing meetings that we could talk about, that you could recommend or talk about anything that you did, or the one person that's on the policy with everybody else talked about anyway, right?
Well, because the policies are all brought here to be
Anyhow.
approved,
So if
right?
there's anything that extra that you want to share with any, because since there's only gonna be one person, I'm not saying, I keep saying you, but that doesn't mean it has to be. But that one person has that time when we discuss those, when we bring them in the regular meetings, we don't have to have another meeting. We could use that as our,
If we want to change how because we have to switch that part of it up, if we want to change how it's approved here, like because right now it's just listed and everyone can see them and that's public information, right, to see these new policies in the first reading, second reading. We haven't been having tons of conversation about them in our board meetings. Is that something we want to change? If we only have one board member at the policy committee meeting?
A lot of the board policies that come through are just being relooked and adopted.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
So they're pretty mundane, it's business as usual.
Some of them are new laws, though.
right.
As the new ones come up, it would be, I kind of like your idea about perhaps we rotate, because if we're saying, well, we'll take the electronic devices.
Mhm.
Okay. New one, it affects all of our kids at every building, all of the adults are having to deal with it. And so I can see one board member kind of writing that through in your
Well-
if there's going to be a vote or something, but these are things that most of the policies, we're reading it and they're like, oh,
Can we discuss policy in executive session?
I don't think we can.
I didn't think so
We
either.
cannot.
But even if we don't discuss, we can discuss it in open session. We
Yep.
could just add, when we need to, add an extra part to the existing, and then just change for that meeting, as opposed to having a whole second meeting.
Yeah, because nobody wants to do that.
No.
So here's what I would suggest is that it is on everybody to read these policies before, because they're long, like that's a big section of the packet, you know, before we come to, actually, are they in the packet? Right? Oh, there they are,
They
right
are.
there.
We
Okay.
do, and Julie's been getting way better about getting us the policies a lot earlier, or the packet, or at least what you can, and those are usually always in there.
So, okay, so do we want to add that to our discussion action and then, and as well, or?
Adding,
It's on the consent agenda right now, but,
but doing what consent agenda? What does the consent agenda say? Just to do one person?
well, we usually just approve the consent agenda, like that's the hire resignations and just, the discussion action is to actually discuss and make action on it, do action on it.
So you want to add a 6.4?
Well,
Or, no,
I'm not,
the
I'm not
6.2.
saying tonight, I'm just saying, is that something we want to do in the future to more talk about these policies? Because
If
we're
necess-
only going to have one board member at the policy committee meetings.
I think that's probably the best way to handle it.
Is that okay to do
Yep.
that?
always change it later.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can
we
move
don't
it,
like
we
it.
can definitely move it to action, to move board policies going forward to action discussion. We can definitely do that.
I'm sorry, I thought you meant you wanted to add something for us to vote on tonight.
Not tonight,
No.
For future.
for the future, because this one was all, these ones have all been done with our other process.
Before the law.
Yes.
So if,
Maybe after the
so
law.
just throwing this out there,
Before we
if,
knew, yes.
if Melinda continues to meet with Julie and I to set the agenda meetings, and then Marcia, if you attend our next policy committee meeting, then I will, we don't have a ton of things facility-wise going on. I will meet with the 3 members that are on the facilities. I'll meet with you individually and talk about what we've got going on. And then we'll come back, and then if we have to make a vote, then that will add that onto action discussion as well. But I can meet with each of you, because there are very specific things, and having worked with the 3 of you, there's different questions that each of you will ask, and so I think it's important that the more people are aware, because we do have a lot of facility issues in this district. It's one of our greatest challenges going forward with the age of our buildings. So I'm willing to try that, have 3 separate meetings with facilities.
So then Marcia's going to remain our policy committee person.
I was just thinking she would do it for the first one,
First, we'll
so that we
rotate.
have the next
Yeah.
meeting, we
And
know
then she
who's
could
gonna
update
do it,
it.
and then we'll
You
just
can
pick
also
somebody
go
else
over
after
it
that.
at the same
So we don't have to rotate, we don't have to know anything tonight in that, because I know we had to establish our committees in July at the beginning, so we don't have to do anything, we won't have to do that every time, will we?
I know that Luke wanted to, he was interested in doing the rotation as well. He still wants to be rotated in to do policy.
We'll stay the same
So we don't
people.
have to change as long as it's one of those 3 people?
That's right,
Okay.
and then,
I don't think it's as good, like, I don't think
Right.
it's as good.
It is.
But
Yeah, I think it
until,
kind of ties your hands a
until the
little bit.
law is changed, which
Yeah.
I do think it probably will be, because I think this was something they thought was a great idea, and then there's these unintended things that like, well, we can't even have an agenda meeting with the chair and board chair there. Like, that seems a little silly, but, you know, so, anyway. If that's what you want to do, we'll do
and we at
that.
least know who we reach out to for the next round of meetings, okay? And we'll bring everything back to action discussion.
Okay, do we want to take a vote, or do we have a discussion first on the Booster Club's proposed structure? So are they paying for it?
Yes.
Do we need to take a vote on it?
Well, we have to
It's new
approve it.
construction.
We have to approve
The
it.
board
So
needs to approve.
I
if
guess
we're
we don't
gonna
have to
move
take a
forward
vote,
with
but we
this
could just
construction.
approve it. If that's,
We're not paying for it, they're doing it.
that's what I'm saying. Is there any
Yeah.
discussion on it? Any?
That was
any-
that was my only question, and you just
Yeah.
asked it.
Yeah, but any improvement that's on our property
Needs to be,
is,
right.
we own it. As soon as they finish the construction, we own it.
I don't think that there's any objection
And-
to
and we
continuing
would
as
have
long
to
as there's no
maintain in
problem
the
to us.
future.
There's not for me.
Will it be in concrete? Is it a permanent structure or is it?
They're putting it on a concrete slab, yes, that's
So
correct.
in between the stands and the,
Permanent.
That's my understanding, is they're mounting it to the concrete. Yeah, if not, I think that thing would be a big sale.
Between the concession set and.
and the stands, right?
And the little,
Where they do their barbecue, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's not, it's on the other
So
side.
the other side, between the restrooms and the concession stand.
yeah, but you've got.
There's something else in there.
Yeah, you,
There's a little more space, so it's right.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying like on this side, not this
On the
side.
right side, if you're
If you
looking.
look at
Yeah.
it, the only part is still grass.
That's correct.
Right.
Concreting that grass part.
in between what?
It's right, it's
It
Are we
is.
looking for a motion to
It's where, Sharon?
We're gonna need to.
Before you get to the concession stand.
Okay, yeah, we'll need a
Oh, okay.
motion.
That's what I saw. On the other side of that dedication rock thing, whatever. That
Because he was the most-
and.
He was the one that got the most.
So do I have a motion to approve 6.3?
Yes, I'll make that motion that we approve this by the Booster Club.
I'll second it.
Okay, so I have a motion by Steve and a second by Marcia to approve the Booster Club's structure next to the Devil's Hut. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, let's move on to 7.0, our consent agenda.
We need to, Julie found this for the OSBA legislative
Oh,
policy
sorry.
candidate, that we need that specific motion. Steve got the most.
Can somebody make that motion? Somebody, it's just approving the vote.
Yeah.
Approving the vote for the, oh, okay. I move that School Board District 8 supports the candidate Steve Hamerson for the OSBA Legislative Policy Committee position number 9.
I second.
Okay, I have a motion by Steve to approve that vote and a second by Kayla. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, now let's move to the consent agenda, 7.0. Do I have a motion or for that?
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda items 7.1 through 7.7.
Second.
I have a motion by Heather and a second by Marcia to approve consent agenda 7.1 through 7.7. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we move to 8.0, staff and public comments. Have we had any turned in?
No.
All right. I'm going to adjourn the meeting.
6:56.
I know, I'm going to try to run over to see the